My name is Alma, and I am 26 years old. I got married about 5 years ago. My son, who is 1.5 years old, is my universe. My husband is doing a good job. He is very handsome and young, and there is not much difference in age from me. Mother-in-law, father-in-law, brother-in-law, and brother-in-law, there are 5 people in our house. No one has any quarrel with anyone. Life was going very smoothly and easily. My husband took full care of me in every way. I was getting everything from him according to my demand. The desires that a human being has to live his life. I also had the same desires, which were fortunately fulfilled. I did not ask for more than this, nor did I ever think of more. That was the reason why I considered myself the luckiest girl in the world. But then something happened, which changed the course of my life. It not only changed my thinking, but today I am living an incomplete life because of this incident. Apparently, there was no difference in my life, but I know that behind this normal life of mine, I also have a secret life, which is a secret, and only I am aware of this secret. The incident happened that night. All of us in the family were sleeping in our own rooms. My husband was out of town on business, while my sister-in-law had also gone to her maternal uncle's house. Mother-in-law was sleeping in her room, while my brother-in-law was sleeping in his room, and I was also sleeping in my room with my son. It must have been around 1:30 a.m. when someone grabbed me by the arm and woke me up. "Who is it?" I shouted, not understanding anything about this sudden chaos. "Be careful, if you raise your voice, I will kill you right here." An unfamiliar voice hit my ears, and at the same time, the barrel of a gun was stuck to my neck. Suddenly, my limbs went numb, and I trembled with fear. My voice seemed to be stuck in my throat. Even if I wanted to speak, I couldn't at that moment. I was really shaking. "Get up and go to the other room and get up," a shrill voice was heard again. I hesitated a little, but the same voice rang in my ears again. "Are you getting up, or should I pull the trigger?" This time the voice was more angry than before. I was shaking badly with fear, and she picked me up and brought me downstairs to the drawing room. When I got there, I saw that they had already brought my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and brother-in-law there, and tied them all up. There were 4 of them, and all 4 had guns. One of them tied me up by the hands too. They had made all of us family members into prisoners. Only my 1.5-year-old son was sleeping alone in the bedroom, who couldn't help us anyway. All 4 of them had masks on their faces, which made it impossible to recognize them. Anyway, all of us family members were so scared and frightened that our minds were paralyzed. I don't know. We were about to be robbed, and there was no other choice but to watch ourselves being robbed. One of the 4, who seemed to be their leader, was asking me where the jewelry, money, and other valuables were. At the same time, he was threatening that if any of us tried to show any intelligence, or make any noise, he would not hesitate to fire, and we would all die. Just as he was saying this, I heard the cry of my son, who had probably woken up from his sleep, and his crying gradually increased. Obviously, if I had been with him, I would have patted him and put him back to sleep. When his crying became louder, the same leader turned to me. "Is it your child? Come on, get up, make him quiet, or we will make him quiet." As soon as his words came out of his mouth, I was left shivering with fear. He put 2 of his companions to search for jewelry, etc., while the 3rd one was put under the watch of my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and brother-in-law, and he himself took me to my room. I picked up my son and held him to my chest and then started swinging him in my arms, but he would not stop crying. "Shut him up, or else," he said angrily once again. "He is hungry," I said in shock. He was looking at me. "I should feed him and put him to bed quickly, or I will put him to bed." He was threatening me again and again, and I was silent. "His milk is lying downstairs in the refrigerator." I was very scared, and my voice was not coming out. "I have to go to the kitchen," I told this robber, so he said angrily, "No, you can't go to the kitchen. Feed him your own milk." I didn't understand what to do. I couldn't do this in front of this unknown robber, and he was clearly threatening that if my son didn't stop crying, he would kill him. In such a situation, I had no choice but to breastfeed him in front of this stranger. I started breastfeeding my son, and he was really hungry. He started drinking quickly. I glanced at the robber with furtive eyes, but he was looking at me. But my son was dearer to me than anything. I lowered my eyes and breastfed him. Suddenly I felt as if he was standing close to me. I raised my head. So he was really standing next to me. Although he was wearing a mask, I could see anger in his eyes. Before I could scream, he said, "If you want your son's life, then do as I say, and if you make even the slightest sound, then understand that I will silence your son's voice forever." In an instant, thousands of thoughts flashed through my mind, but every thought died, because my son's life was tied to my actions, and his life was more important to me than anything else. I surrendered myself to the circumstances, and he took my son from my hands and put him in a big swing near the bed. A flood of tears came from my eyes. I wanted to scream, to call out loudly for help, but my son's face was in front of my eyes, which was stopping me from taking any such step. I did not like this robber talking to me like that at all. If I were in Ulrima, I would have slapped him so much that he would never dare to say such a thing to anyone again. But he had made me helpless by threatening my son's life. After that, he started loving me, so I started getting confused with the niqab. I told him that I was getting confused with his niqab. He thought that maybe I wanted to take off his niqab and just see his face, so he refused to take it off. But seeing the expression of confusion and worry on my face, he took off the niqab. He had a strong body, and a handsome young man even in his face. I fell for him just by seeing him, and I was sitting on the bed watching this robber. I wanted to preserve his face in my mind for the rest of my life, because I knew that the one who enlightened me with something I was not familiar with after today had the right to be remembered. He said, "If only time had not been short, I would have loved you so much that you would have given me all your wealth yourself." He intrigued me, and with this question in my mind, he was about to leave. His companions had called out to him that the work was complete. He headed towards the door. When he reached the door, he put on his veil, and before he went out of the door, he turned and looked at me again and said, "My name is Jahangir, remember." He had gone, and I was sitting like an idol. Suddenly I woke up from my dream and ran downstairs, where my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and brother-in-law were still tied up. I untied them all. Later, my father called the police station, and after about an hour and a half to 2 hours, a police van arrived, who checked the scene. We had seen all the rooms before the police arrived. Everything was scattered. It seemed that they had searched every corner of the house. The police recorded separate statements from all of us. I also gave my statement, but I hid the loving part. I told the same story until my son started crying, and I said in my statement that when I had breastfed my son, the robber tied me up with my scarf right here on the bed, and he himself met his companions. And I also wrote in my statement that when I felt silence in the house, I had opened myself with great difficulty, and later I opened the rest of the family. After taking their necessary action, the police left after reassuring us, and assured us that they would catch the robbers soon. I called my husband and informed him about the incident, and the next day many people came to share our grief. Everyone was comforting me, and my mother-in-law was dying of grief that her life's worth had been stolen, and I was grieving that I would never see this robber again. The police were also looking at me as a suspect in their investigation. They were doubtful as to why I was taken to a separate room, and how I was freed. They also doubted whether I had been tied up or not. But the statements of my husband, mother-in-law, and father-in-law were in my favor, and that was the truth. I was not playing the role of a house intruder in this robbery at all. The police were investigating in their own way, and I had no objection to their method. Gradually, the incident in our house was covered in the dust of dozens of other incidents in the city. All the family members were also trying to forget this incident like a bad dream, and I also wanted to forget it. But that robber was always in front of my eyes. The few moments spent with him could not be erased from my mind. Everyone thought that this incident had had a bad effect on me, due to which I often got lost. But I knew that I got lost because of not being able to find him. One day my mother-in-law was not feeling well, so I took her to the hospital to see the doctor. After the checkup, the doctor prescribed some medicines, which I entered a medical store to buy, and I was stunned to see the person standing at the counter. The same person who had told me his name was Jahangir, and a few months ago had not only robbed my property and belongings from my house, but also my peace and dignity. He too was suddenly frightened, and his complexion turned yellow. But then he controlled himself and said, "Yes, what can I do for you?" I stood there staring at him for a moment. He then asked, so I handed him the medicine slip without saying a word. He was taking out the medicine for me, while I stood there staring at him. He was also looking at me furtively, avoiding looking at me. He put the medicine in the bag, and after calculating it told me the money. He was bowing his head, and was not meeting my eyes. I paid him the money, so he handed me the medicine bag and wrote something on a piece of paper and handed it to me. His scared and embarrassed face was preventing me from saying or doing anything. Then there was something inside me, which was preventing me from taking any step. Anyway, whatever it was, I remained silent and picked up the medicine bag and walked out of the store. On the way, I opened the slip he had given me and read it, on which only was written, "I am guilty, whatever punishment you suggest, I accept, but talk to me once." Below was his phone number. I was in a dilemma as to what to do. Should I report it to the police, or should I talk to him first? I was in a strange confusion. On one side, the stolen wealth from the house, and on the other, my lost peace. I was wondering whether to prioritize something. What is more important to me, wealth or my love? Then this thought helped me make the final decision that for wealth and wealth, everyone has satisfied themselves by considering it as fate. But after that day, I could not find love till today, and my heart could not be satisfied till today. Thinking this, I decided to call him, so that I could also know his side of the story, what he was thinking, and what he expected from me. And completed all the necessary work, and now I had free time. I was still in a dilemma as to what to do. Finally, I decisively picked up the mobile and dialed his number. Although I had dialed the number, I was quite nervous. I did not know what to talk about. After a long ringing, the phone was picked up. "Hello, who is it?" His voice hit my ears, and I felt my throat go dry, and my voice stopped. The words got stuck in my mouth. A video of the entire incident of that day started playing in my mind, and I was wondering whether to hate or love this person, punish or reward him. The second time the voice of hello came, so I hung up the phone, and I was still in a daze, and it was strange. I would control myself and explain that he is a criminal, and he should be punished for what he did, and then the devil inside me would start seducing me that the life I was living was very empty. The joy of living life is only when you enjoy its true colors, and in my immature mind at that time, the only thing that made life enjoyable was that love makes life joyful. Actually, it was my own selfishness that such a thought had been born in my mind. Otherwise, my life was going very well and very happily before the incident of that day. I dialed his number again. This time it didn't take long to pick up the phone. On the second ring, the phone was answered with a hello. "Who is speaking?" Instead of saying hello, I asked a direct question. "Yes, Jahangir, who is it now?" He told me his name and then asked about me. "I think you already know who I am, and I am also sure that you will remember the entire incident of that day." "Yes, His voice was trailing off, or he was acting like a fool. Why is that? How would he answer my question? He had no argument or reason. Maybe that was why he fell silent. And then after some time, he broke the silence, and his voice hit my ears. "I am your culprit, and I am very ashamed of it. Punish me however you want." You have every right to do so, but know that whatever happened, I was very compelled to do so. He began to speak, and then he kept on speaking. Despite being a tyrant, he was trying to make himself the victim. I am not a real criminal, nor a robber. My brother was in the hospital due to an accident. I needed money for his treatment, which I did not have. I had knocked on every door to get money, I had rubbed my forehead everywhere, but I could not arrange money from anywhere. We are only two brothers, the father is not in this world, there is a mother who was suffering from the grief of her son, and her suffering was not seen by me. I talked to my friends, so they suggested this action. I did not agree at first, but I did not see the questioning face of my mother. Seeing my mother's condition, I decided to commit this crime to save my brother's life, and together with my friends, I robbed your house. It was not decided in advance that your house would be robbed. You can call it a coincidence that the house we entered to rob was your house. And this was the first and last robbery of my life. Also told you this. Let me tell you that the guns we had were not real, but were ordinary toy guns for children to play with, because our intention was not to kill anyone. As he was about to speak, I interrupted him and said, "So, what you did to me was not a crime. You are considering only robbing a person a crime." But it rained, so he immediately cut me off. I do not deny this crime either. I have already said that I am your culprit. We entered your house to rob it, so no one had any such intention. Rather, the plan was to pack up the things and leave as soon as possible. He might have said more, but I said that my husband had come home, so let's talk later, and hung up the phone. My husband had indeed returned from work. I had not told my mother-in-law about this robber, and now I wanted to hide it from my husband too. That is why as soon as I heard the sound of his car outside, I told him to talk to me later, and hung up the phone. From the time I talked to this robber until I went to bed, I kept thinking about him. In the morning, after having breakfast, everyone went to their own work. So I had just finished work, and was sitting down, when I was startled by the ringing of my mobile. I saw that it was his call. I went to my room and answered the phone, and before I could speak, he spoke. "I am, yes, your culprit. Yesterday the conversation could not be completed, so today I am bothering you again. I want to know what punishment you have suggested for me." I was silent, and was just deciding what to say when suddenly I felt him start crying. He started pleading that he was forced, that is why he committed the crime, and at the same time he was praising my beauty and grace, saying that even the demons would be seduced by seeing a girl like me. She is still human. That is why he wanted me to forgive his sin. He had to be punished, so shouldn't I have told the police right away and got him arrested? My heart was already beating for him. My heart was getting out of control for him. That is why my heart was trying to convince me with various excuses that he was forced, that is why he did this. "Go, I forgive you," I said, and she jumped. I couldn't see her, but I could tell from her voice that she had won a battle. "I was sure that you would forgive me, understanding my circumstances," she said, So I asked her how she could say that with such certainty. So her answer took me to the extreme of selfishness. Compliments are a weakness of every human being, but in this case, women are a little weaker. For any tough woman, a few words of praise are enough to pile her up like a wall of sand. Anyway, I was not thinking about this robber with my mind, but was busy building a relationship of heart and love with him. She said that she believed that I was so beautiful because the heart inside her could not be hardened. Therefore, she was sure that I would definitely forgive her, understanding her compulsion. He was praising me, and I wanted him to make the series of compliments longer and longer, and he was doing just that. I kept drowning in the city of his words, and he was singing hymns of my kindness again and again. At the same time, he was also mentioning my beauty. There was no special reaction from me. I did not want to give him any hint that I was also in love with him. But I did not know when, while praising my beauty, he asked me if I enjoyed being with him. So I also involuntarily said in response that it was very nice. He plucked up the courage to ask me if I would like to meet him again. This was not unexpected for me. I had an idea that he was going to ask such a question. I did not answer him, so he repeated it again and asked when I could meet him. I wanted to tell him that it was not appropriate, but the words did not support me, and what came out of my mouth was, "Let's see, when will I get a chance?" I myself was surprised that for him, who had robbed the wealth and honor of my family, my attitude was so loving and compassionate. Although he had shown me no mercy, when I was begging him for mercy, I was saying the exact opposite of what I wanted to say. My thoughts were broken when I heard him say how long we can meet. He was asking again and again, and I was unable to say anything. Seeing his increasing insistence, I said that I am a married woman, and I also have a child. It is not easy for me to meet you now. I have already said that we will meet whenever the opportunity arises. He was more restless than me, but he understood, so he wanted to talk here and there. So I apologized that our conversation had already gone on for quite some time, so I said we would talk later, and hung up. She thought I must have gotten angry and hung up. So she immediately called me back. I told her that I wasn't angry, but I also do housework, so I ended the conversation. She promised to talk to me again tomorrow and hung up. Even while working in the kitchen, my attention was focused on what she was saying. I kept thinking about how I could get a chance to spend some time with her. My husband used to go to the office, my brother-in-law and Nand also went to school and college, while I could also relax at home. I had a mother-in-law who lived with me in the house, but she also went to the neighborhood and worked in another. I often had to sit with women. I kept making plans during work to find out how I could spend my time. I slept in bed at night. Even then I was thinking that my husband must have noticed. That's why he said, "What are you lost in thoughts?" So I also made an excuse and said that it had been a long time since our house was robbed, but no one had been found yet. I don't know whether the robbers will ever be caught or not. My husband started explaining to me that everything happens for some reason or the other. Thank God everyone's lives are safe. What about wealth? More will come. But if someone's life had been lost, the loss would have been great. Don't think too much about what happened. Pay attention to what is going to happen. The next day too, I had just finished work when his call came. I was in my room, so I answered the phone on the first ring. Before I could speak, he spoke. I am very worried. What do you mean? I also replied without understanding anything. Nothing. Yes, I mean, were you expecting my call? He probably said, laughing. No way, the phone was in my hand, that's why I quickly answered. I also replied in an emotionless tone. He must have noticed my reserved attitude, that's why he started talking here and there. He was also resorting to jokes during the conversation, at which at first I was just smiling, but then gradually my laughter started to rise. And after some time, when he noticed my changed style, he suddenly got straight to the point and said, "When will we meet?" I was not expecting this sudden question, that's why I asked the opposite question, meaning, when are we meeting? He also changed the style of his question without pausing. I'll tell you tomorrow. I must have been under the influence of some kind of spell. I had told him without thinking. Okay, so you'll call us. He was talking like a master, and I was a slave who bought money. You don't call. I will contact you after finding the right time, I had said, but I had no plans for the time to come. After hanging up the phone, I started thinking about what to do. When we met, I was also looking forward to it, but the compulsion was that how would I find the time? While sitting at the dinner table, my mother-in-law told me that she was going to Lahore to meet her sister in 2 days, and my Nand and Sir would also go with her, and would stay there for a week. Bells started ringing in my mind. Actually, this was my own thought, what I was thinking about him like this, and I did not feel any regret about these thoughts of mine, rather I was happy in my heart. The next morning, after finishing all my work, I called him and told him that I would contact him soon to meet him, and he wanted to talk, but I quickly hung up the phone, pretending to be busy. I didn't want to tell her everything right away. I was thinking that when my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and uncle left for Lahore, I would contact her to meet her. I didn't want my mother-in-law to postpone her trip to Lahore and for us to face any trouble. The next day, when my husband left for work, and my mother-in-law and father-in-law also left for Lahore, I quickly finished work and called the robber. I didn't want to wait any longer, and I knew that there would be no one else at home except me until 5 in the evening. When she picked up the phone on the 3rd ring, I hung up the phone, and I was still suffering from a mixture of fear. The mind was listening, so that unfaithful sinner himself was making thunderous sounds, and my heart was eager to take me to the valleys of love and affection. Tangled in these tangled threads, I picked up a towel and went to freshen up. After some time, I freshened up and put on a nice dress, and was examining myself carefully in front of the mirror. Although many years had passed since my marriage, and I was also the mother of a child, my beauty and charm had not diminished. I was still better than thousands of virgins. I was looking at myself, and I myself was appreciating my beauty, and I did not realize how much time had passed. Suddenly, the gate bell rang and pulled me out of the world of imagination. I approached the gate and asked softly from inside, "Who is it?" He said, "Honorable, who else could it be? I am your servant, whom you have just called." He was actually laughing. I opened the door, and she entered in an instant. I took one look at her, and then without saying anything, I walked forward and brought her inside the house.